Can Happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia. Hi and welcome to Duran ASEAN. You're with Gauri.
Hello, this is Grace.
And this is, of course, Anything Can Happen Friday, where we bring you the arts, cultural, also lifestyle part of Southeast Asia. And today we will be discussing a very hot issue in this country, which is unemployment, basically, where a lot of young fresh graduates just cannot seem to get hired and they cannot seem to get the job that they want. And this is something that's become a huge complaint. And here with us we have someone, he's actually the principal consultant of HC Consultants Group, and his name is Sunil, and he's here with us, so let's say good morning to him.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How are you today?
Very good.
Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure to be here with you all.
So, Sunil, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself first, and what do you do with HC Consultants Group?
All right. I am basically the principal consultant, all right, of Human Capital Consultants Group. And from what you heard, HC stands for Human Capital, which means we are very passionate about developing people and transforming people's, especially the youth's life, so that they can achieve greater excellence. And also we help businesses perform and achieve high performance culture. So that's where we are.
So what are some of your events or examples of things that you conduct?
Okay, we conduct lots of training programs, and many of us among the team gets invited to speak at local and international conferences relating to youth development, relating to human capital development and all that.
What is the most common questions that you are asked when it comes to workshop or any events that you have conducted so far?
Right, let me just reiterate a very good example. I was in Albania about 2 months back, right, at the World Assembly of Youth General Assembly. And at that point, I actually shared with the various country leaders and also ministers who were present on the issue where the youths today have become rather less productive. The youths, we were discussing in depth actually, in fact, that the youths are not as committed as they were. The drive in them for excellence and success is not there anymore. So I think this is the kind of issues we are addressing, because it has a very strong impact on the employability. It has a strong impact on the country's economy.
But why have they become so unproductive? Is it because of all the social media and television?
Well, Gauri, I think you just hit the right spot. If you go into workshops, if you go into conferences, well, in fact, I just got back from a 2-day workshop just yesterday. Right? While the speaker is talking, while you're facilitating workshops, people are actually out there busy either with their laptops or the smartphones. So those days managing laptop was easy. Alright, you tell them please keep your laptops away. But now how do I actually tell them please no using your mobile phones? Alright, no matter how engaging some sessions or some workshops are, you find that people are still very inclined to playing with their mobile phones, which technically is the social media itself, which is creating an impact.
But going back to the whole idea of people getting addicted to social media and television, could that, also be the reason why they have become so passive in the sense as well? Because everything is, all the information is just there at your fingertips. You just go on Facebook, you see a lot of people posting ads as well, looking for part-timers, looking for this. So does that sort of kill their proactiveness to actually go out there and look for something?
I think people have forgotten one very important fact. As traditional as it may sound, there is nothing like a personal touch. Alright, I may send my CV to you, or I may send you a message through Facebook, and you might get very impressed by my looks, or you may be very impressed by my profile. But hey, you have not met me in person. So how are you going to get a chance to get to know me? How are you going to assess the person? As compared to those days where people used to go from offices to door to, hey, catch up with people that they might know, they might not know, and randomly try their luck. And you find that those people actually get success better, because that characteristics of persistence, the characteristics of hard work and not giving up is very evident, which today you don't see when everything is a click away. on your iPads and your laptops.
How about when it comes to young graduates? Most of them, they just want to ace in their grades rather than focusing more on the soft skills, communication skills. Maybe it could be a sort of like a downfall of the universities or colleges, what they are providing to the students, because it is also the implementation of the education system in certain countries that you have to get a good grade to go to or to apply for these big companies or national companies such. So what is your opinion in this?
I think, Arlene, you brought up a very good point.
It's Grace.
Grace, sorry. Grace, you brought up a very good point actually, because if you realize Malaysians, to be very specific, have become so academic oriented. If you realize the moment the child is born, 2 years down the road, the child is already sent for smart kids and this maths tutorial and that brain training and all that. Come primary school standard 1 itself, the child is already pushed into tuitions. The child doesn't live a life of a kid. Alright, we have become so competitive in a way where at the end of everything, as long as you get a distinction, and that culture is going on right up to the university. Not many students, back in university, I got a scholarship from University of Technology Petronas to perform to do my degree, and I spent at least 80% of my time in the various clubs and societies in the university. Some of my friends were wondering, what the hell is wrong with you? Don't you think that spending time with your friends and spending time studying is more important? But for some reason, my passion and my inclination was more towards all this. And I realized that there's a lot of benefit of doing that. You can go into the university with the main objective of, excelling in your studies, which is a must. But more important than that is the soft skills.
Right.
And soft skills cannot be taught. You must jump into the bandwagon and experience it yourself. And the only way to experience it in school, in colleges, in universities is to partake actively in the various clubs and societies that they are. And that gives you a very good platform. In fact, let me share with you, recently in my company, we wanted to hire some people. I got about 70 over resumes and CVs on my desk. After skimming through them, I had some first class honors students, I had second uppers. I actually threw those resumes aside, very frankly. Alright, I'm sharing this with you, what the industry actually expects.
Please.
Why did I reject the first class? Simply because when you read their CV, you know that this person is a nerd.
Yeah.
For the kind of work that we were looking at, I don't need a nerd. Alright, I want someone who has got the people skills, someone who is very positive, someone who is optimistic, someone who is willing to go down to the grounds and get their hands dirty. But that is not something the youths today would like to do.
Right.
Alright, and of course I don't generalize all youths, but this is the general issue that we are facing in the country right now. You can see that happening. Alright, but the ones that eventually got picked up was the second class lower student who was involved with probably more than about 10 different organizations and being involved with youth and social work and all that, and that person got the employment. So the key message that I want to share here will be the importance of having leadership, communication skills, soft skills and all that, rather than just focusing on the grades. Because what is more important, the key to success, this is something my mentor, Professor Dr. Suresh Govin, he's a University Malaya professor, used to tell me, and this goes back 16 years ago. The key to success, has 2 elements. Number 1, attitude. Number 2, skills. Alright, so it's only 20% skills that matters in your success, but the 80% is attitude. And if I were to quote him right, he clearly says, if you have the right attitude, the skills will come, the success will come. And that's where it is, and that's where the attitude element in today's youth is missing. The skills are there, alright, but the attitude is missing, and I think we need to correct the attitude so that we can achieve the success.
So speaking of attitude, maybe you can elaborate more on what is exactly the right attitude that they should have, or that employers tend to scout for or look for when somebody walks in through that door.
And also, in addition to that, what is exactly the root of this attitude change nowadays among younger generations, because it could be the social media that they're heavily relying on the getting the receiving the information from there, so they look for easier way to get jobs or easier way to live their lifestyles. So what is the...
See, Grace, in your statement just now, you mentioned the word easier way, I think about 4 times.
Yeah.
Think about it. Think about it. Okay? There is no way you can achieve success the easier way.
That's true.
Hard work will pay. It's just a matter of time. Alright? And that is the issue today, because you know why? The youths today do not have the endurance, they do not have the persistency to endure pain to achieve excellence and success. The expectation is, oh, I can just sit on the computer and I'll be able to achieve success. I don't think success can be achieved as easily as that. Alright? I think the other important point that I would say is the willingness, okay, to work hard must be there with the right positive attitude. Today, if you realize, the very moment a superior scolds the junior, okay, or the employee, within 10 minutes later, you will find the employee comes up with a resignation letter. That's what's meant by attitude. Alright? Okay. In those days, your superior, your mentor, your coaches will really squeeze you. Alright? They will give you their peace of mind. But their intentions are always to help you. And so are the superiors today. The bosses do not mean to scold you just for fun. Nobody likes scolding or receiving scolding just for fun. Right? But we do that because we want to make sure you can actually give your best. And that is something people cannot tolerate. In those days, loyalty for an organization, you go back and ask your parents, okay, your relatives, everyone would have probably worked in the same organization for 10, 12, 15, 20, 30 years. Today, youths will not work in a company more than 3 years. Why? Oh, the moment I go 3 years, I jump to another company, immediately I'm going to get a salary increase of 20 to 30%. So, the motive and the success factor that they look for in their life is money.
So it's a very quick gratification.
They are looking for quick gratifications, which in the long run may not be sustainable. In the short run, yes, within about say 5 jobs that you jump, you may start earning about 15,000-20,000 ringgit. But I don't think that will take you very far.
But if you put in the reverse way, right? Let's say, as much as I mentioned a lot about the easier access there, but how about younger generation? They have become more vocal than those back to compared to decades ago, because back then probably they just wanted to follow the higher authorities' order or principles. Nowadays they are more flexible when it comes to stuff. Thus they look for the friendlier environment, such as they want to work in the company where it's like a Google environment, when everyone is respected, everyone is equal, rather than having the vertical structures in the companies.
I totally agree with you, because I personally am against people trying to boss their way through and try to dictate. I am against dictatorship, to be very frank. But however, all right, as much as we want to work in an environment that is open environment, but the right attitude matters. And you probably have heard this word attitude couple of times, and that's something that is missing very badly among our people.
Right.
All right. And I do not deny it is important to work in an environment where it gives you the opportunity to unleash your potential, gives you an opportunity to work and grow your passion. Because the only way to achieve success and to achieve the joy within of what you are doing is to do what you are passionate about. Like Grace, what drives you to wake up early in the morning, come to the studio and do this DJing job is because probably you are passionate. Am I right?
Yeah, that's
exactly.
Right.
It is when you are passion driven, success will come.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing that I wanted to ask you. When it comes to, let's just say someone who has just graduated high school, in this case, in the Malaysian context, let's just say SPM or STPM.
Okay.
And when they try to look for a course in university or college, they don't think about, oh, what is my passion? What do I feel strongly about? They just think which job is going to get me the most money, which one is going to get me hired immediately. So, what is
it's either that or they have been groomed from young by the parents that oh, you must be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. If you are not one of these three, you are declared a failure in life. And I think that mindset has to go. Alright, there is so many different kind of opportunities there are in the market, alright, that can bring about success. Okay, and to go back to your question, I think they should pick what they are passionate about. Just let me relate to you an incident of two people that I know, very close friends of mine. One did a medical degree. The moment the convocation was over, at the convocation ceremony itself, handed over the scroll to the parents. Here you have your son who is a doctor. Finally, I'm going to go and do the program that I want, and I want to live my life. Now, what does that tell you? It was not because the child wanted to do medicine, but it was the pressure by the parents that made the child do it. And the same thing, another friend of mine, okay, was very passionate about mass communication. And in Malaysia, if you realize, for many people, they feel when you are a mass comm graduate, you are the person who have no other choice and alternatives in life. So you are just put through a mass communication program, which is apparently supposed to be very easy. You graduate so that you can actually have a degree in your hand. And that's a so wrong perception that we have.
I can so agree because I have a mass communication
degree.
Oh my,
I hope I didn't start the wrong place.
Well, it all depends on how you look at it, you know, or whatever the degree that you are holding. And then after all, it is true, degree could be just the papers. Your passion might not go along with your degree, and then it is very unfortunate if students have to be pushed to study for there's something that they don't want to.
Exactly. No, let's not go far. The person that you're talking to today is actually a mechanical degree by profession.
Right.
But if you ask me to go into a plant, into a refinery, or into a complex and do some mechanical work, trust me, I will go through depression. Because I'm very people-oriented.
Right.
I'm the person who wants to be there with people on the ground, helping them and transforming lives out there. And there you put me and, during my industrial attachment, I still remember, I was in Malacca, alright, and at the refinery, feeling depressed having to go to work. Why? Because I got to wear this coverall and go into the Malacca refinery so that I could then do some work with the tank management. A person who wants to sit and have coffee with people and conduct trainings and inspire people has to go and sit and do the blasting and painting of a tank. Can you imagine how depressing that can be?
Yeah,
but that's the point, where you got to do what you're passionate about. And I'm so glad, with the blessings of Almighty, I'm out. I'm not doing anything related to mechanical engineering, and I'm there out there doing what I am passionate about.
Speaking of that, right, are there any platforms, or is your company itself conducting some sort of a training where people can actually find out what they are passionate about, or where some people may not know which is their strong skills and what are their weaknesses? So is there a way for them to figure this out?
Yes, definitely. We do have a very interesting program called the Career Coaching, where we'll sit down with you and have just conversation. No paper, no profiling, nothing. Okay, we'll just sit and
ticking
talk.
Boxes.
Nothing, no ticking boxes and all that. Okay, and in that conversation, we will make you see what you are passionate about. We'll help you realize that, hey, actually that is what I love to do. All right. And yeah, we do have a couple of other programs like Make Yourself Employable, which teaches you the various skills and tools and techniques that you require to be able to achieve, the basics which will help you get an employment. So yeah, we do.
So we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we will talk more about what employers are looking for in the graduates these days.
All right.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia. Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Gauri.
And Grace.
And of course, we also have Sunil here from HC Consultants Group, who is giving us some insights on why fresh grads can't get hired these days and what they can do about it.
And in fact, this is an endless topic because it's also ongoing issues that younger generations are having. And I would love to ask you that we just talked about off air for a while, but then let's continue. Yeah. Right. In Asian countries especially, we have this sort of systematic flow of your life, like meaning that after you finish your high school, you have to go to college, after you have to get a job, and then with a stable job, you need to have a family and blah, 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 and so on. But in my own opinion, you don't need to follow all that. You know, you can always take your time to see what your passion is, and then where your love for, love for whatever you want to do in your life. Because after all, it's your life, and the younger generation really need to know about this. It may sound very philosophical, but yeah, it works.
I guess one of the concern is also that they want to do it quickly because they don't want to lose that momentum.
Exactly.
Because what if I finish high school and then I take a few years gap and then I try to go back to college and then I just lose the touch and then I cannot get my degree and then no one will employ me. Is that a concern as well? Or are we just like following the system?
Yeah, it's also the society that actually crafted all this momentum and within younger generations.
Gee, very interesting point that you brought up. Okay, just sometime back I was having a coffee conversation with a friend, and we spoke about this: how you were born, and then you study harder, you get a degree, you work even harder, then you are forced to get married, all right, and after married you have to start saving, and then you start saving harder, then you actually have your kids, and then when you're about 50-55 years old, you got to start worrying. And you worry harder, and eventually you go to the grave. And I think that is how our human life is being structured. Not definitely not something that we want, but by people, by society.
Right.
All right. And you brought up a good point, Grace. It's actually the Asian culture, where you have such kind of a stream, and that's not really the truth in Western countries. Like I've got a very close friend of mine. Her name is Sally, and Sally works in now in Cambodia because of her passion. But she used to work in Australia. She earned enough after about 5 years or so, and she has now devoted her life to community projects. You know, she's actually helping to run the orphanage home in Cambodia. She promised her family, I still remember, for about I think a year. The deal was you only go for 18 months and you come back and get back to your normal life. After 1.5 years, she has continued and she's doing great work there. Why? Because she found her passion in society, the passion in community work, in helping the children grow. Alright? And I think this is something very common where people in the Western world, people in the non-ASEAN countries tend to actually work very hard for a few years, and then they will resign from their existing jobs, go into a new job, right, after a 6 months gap, and during the 6 months they will travel the world, they will spend their time with their family, loved ones and all. And that's not something that Malaysians do, as much as I have seen. I mean, even my own circle of friends, nobody has the courage to do that as much as we all want to do that. One of the many factors that's driving such a thing is our income. We have to admit the fact, in order for you to walk out of employment, you must be able to sustain at least for 1 year financially. And I don't think many young adults know how to manage the finances where they will be able to save up enough for a year and a half, and be able to go jobless for 6 months so they can travel the world. Alright?
Why can't they look for instance, part-time jobs when they really want to go for traveling after graduation or such?
I think she's speaking from experience.
Yes. Grace, let me ask you, how do you think your parents are going to react when their friends and your relatives are asked, hey, what is Grace doing? Oh, today she is working in Durian ASEAN. No, it's a very powerful online radio station. And 6 months later, hey, I have not seen Grace. I've not heard her. What's going on? Oh, no, she has moved to another job. Again, societal perceptions.
Right. Okay. Well, it is it is understandable that people are afraid of being judged by the society, but at the same time, if you keep like having this fear, I'm going to be judged by family or the society, how are you going to actually see yourself grow and develop yourself, and or even find your passion eventually? You will just keep on complaining, get stressed, and eventually get sick, and all those negative stuff will come along.
That is why, if you realize, those people who have broken away from the norm are the ones who will be hated by the society in the beginning, and then because of their passion, they achieve success, and the whole society will go up to them and like, oh my God, you actually did it in life.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you have seen friends. I mean, Gauri, you have got friends who you would have seen, doing such things where the moment they get out of the norm, initially you will be hated, you'll be looked down upon, you'll be condemned, but eventually you find that, hey, you know what? You have achieved it. Let's not go far. The world's richest man, I'm sure when he was a school dropout, okay, he was condemned. Okay, he probably became a laughing stock, but today everyone looks up to him.
True.
We all seek inspiration from him. Alright, and there are many others good examples out there.
And I also want to ask you, in terms of since we're talking about parents and society, a lot of jobs or their options tend to be very conventional, like you were saying doctor, lawyer, engineer, but they don't realize that there is a whole other industry out there that is yet to be explored, like talking about things like social media executive or consultant. Like things like this didn't exist 20, 30 years back, but now there's actually a demand for that. But why are people sort of like just brushing it off, or they don't believe in actually taking this up as a career, and they prefer these conventional jobs?
Okay, again it goes back to two things. Number one, the perception that is there in the minds of people that only if you are a doctor, lawyer and engineer you are considered successful. Second being the fact that people have not seen the greatness of positions like social media consultants and all. But to give credit to the current situation in the industry, I think people have started to recognize.
Okay.
All right. I have got friends who have started their own social media consultancy firms, and they're doing really, really well. Okay. But if you were to look from the general youth's perspective, they are still very much in tune towards the conventional jobs and all that. And that, I believe, is driven by the culture and upbringing.
Right. And let's move on to job interview, because I think one of the main problems why a lot of fresh grads can't get hired is probably the way they carry themselves or certain things that they say during a job interview. So for yourself, I know you deal with a lot of young people, fresh graduates. So maybe you can start with what is the common mistakes that they make when they walk into that door?
I think before you walk into the door, what is going to be critical is to make sure your resume or your curriculum vitae is actually properly written.
Okay.
And like you mentioned, I've reviewed many, over the years, and I find that people don't know how to even write proper resume.
Okay.
And that is disheartening, because you don't forget, the only document, the only thing that I will review when you ask for an employment is your CV. If I'm not impressed by your CV, you are not even going to get an opportunity to come to my doorstep.
So what is so important about the CV that people tend to neglect?
See, people always give so much of focus on the various subjects that they have done in the university. Alright, this is a very common mistake I see among the writing of CV. Alright, they write all the various projects and academic projects. That means if you have done, say, for thermodynamics, a particular experiment or what, you sort of put so much emphasis, 2-3 pages, they very proudly list that down. But they don't realize the very moment in one statement you put there first class honors, I already know that you are you have got the brains.
Right.
Alright, but what I'm not able to see is the attitude and the behavioral traits, and that I would be able to assess very briefly by you sharing on how active you were in sports, how have you been involved with the extracurricular activities and all that. But the emphasis on the other things are not there. Only two reasons that comes to mind. Number one, they genuinely have been people who eat, sleep, shit and study. Alright? Or alternatively, they have been active but never realized the importance and the benefit of actually documenting that properly.
So would you say it's a 50-50, or should it be like 70-30, where only 30% is on your academic qualifications?
Okay, I know many people will challenge when I give numbers and percentages, right? But personally, from my own experience, I think it's about 70-30.
Okay.
70% is your soft skills.
Right.
30% is your documents and your degree and your paperwork.
Your exam results.
Yep, that's it.
So the others should focus on your skills, what are the skills you have.
I must give credit, very frankly, to my parents, especially my dad, who from young itself put so much of emphasis on being involved with extracurricular activities and non-governmental organizations. Well, I probably can remember since I was in standard 6, alright, I was already involved with different kind of NGOs back in Malacca, because my dad is a teacher, and as a teacher he realized that yes, the education and the grades are going to be important, but what is even more important is your leadership skills, your soft skills, and your, all the other skills that will help you in the life.
So I want to ask about the interview again.
Come back to that.
When it comes to salary scale, is it usually acceptable for graduates to demand a certain number of salary if they feel like I'm worth that paycheck?
Yes, many people that come to us will come and say, oh, I deserve more. But they're not able to justify why they deserve more. Okay, just because you're going to sit in an office for about 8 hours, you feel that 1,500 or 2,000 ringgit salary is not enough. Okay, but the truth is, it's not dependent on the hours that you put in. It is dependent on the output and the benefits of what the organization gets from the work that you do. To answer your question earlier on interviews, I think first things first, the moment they enter the office, very simple basics, okay, which are not there today. They don't even knock the door.
Okay.
A simple thing, a very simple basic thing. Alright, knock the door, okay, don't straight go to the chair and sit. Shake hands with the interviewer. May I sit please? Simple things like this makes a big impact. And this is something that I see honestly that's missing among the people that have come into my office for interviews and all.
And what about like the tone they speak, or do you look out for certain body language as well?
Okay, very interesting. Couple of things that happens. Number one, you find some who try to project who they are not. And my sincerest advice is just be who you are. Alright? And let the assessor, let the interviewer decide, based on who you are you fit for the job, and are you going to get the job or not. Number two, you find some people appearing to be very arrogant, and this you see among the people who are first class. Because they have got their first class, they feel they are very good, okay, and they tend to project that arrogance, and that kills in an interview. Alright. Thirdly, you find those who are extremely shy, who do not want to express themselves. Alright, so I think what is important is to allow these people to understand that when you go into an interview room, be yourself. You don't need to fake it up. But if you know how to project yourself well, you will get the opportunity.
Well, let's move on to the a bit different topic there. Nowadays, the startup scenes are really booming in Malaysia. Not only Malaysia, actually, Southeast Asia, even in America. What is your point? What is your idea in this startup? And also, furthermore, how about the entrepreneurship and among youngsters?
Well, personally, I do support entrepreneurship. I sit on the International Board of Directors of the World Association of Visionaries and Entrepreneurology. Alright, it's a US-based organization, and we really support entrepreneurship because I think that is one big area where not many people were initially given an exposure to. Alright, but now Malaysia has really started to boom, and you can see a lot of young budding entrepreneurs out there in the market, and I think it's very, very good to have young startups doing different kind of business ventures and collaborating with other organizations and other companies to establish a career path moving forward. So I think if families and if society does not judge the young budding entrepreneurs, entrepreneurship is definitely a very good way to move forward in life.
Is there any differences between, let's say, Western and Asian when it comes to entrepreneurship, in terms of mindset or the principles or the steps they actually take to become entrepreneur?
I think generally the behavior and the characteristics that make you a successful entrepreneur are very much the same.
Right.
But what probably differs in the way of doing business in different countries, and I think that you will realize when you go out there or pitch for job opportunities or business opportunities, sometimes in certain countries, because of the political influence, because of the the way the government operates, you need to work your way around it. Like for example, if you would want to do a business, Grace, my suggestion is go have a Bumiputra friend who will help you out.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Give that person 70% share in your company, you do all the work.
In Malaysia.
In Malaysia, yeah.
So I would like to go back to the interview as well. You were saying that before the interview, what's really important is the resume, and you gave some useful tips as well. But I want to ask about the weight of the resume, or maybe the size, if I may, because some people might think that, oh, if I walk in with like 20-30 pages, that boosts my credibility. Is that true? Because I've also read a lot of articles that said your resume shouldn't be more than 2 pages long.
Ideally, all right, I would say you should have nothing more than 2 to 3 pages.
Right.
Because if you give me a, say, 10-page document, all right, I honestly would not be getting the chance to read them all. So I'm like, okay, you know what, let's put this aside.
Especially
I won't throw it away, it'll be put away. Exactly.
Resumes you
yes. All right. So what happens then is you already put on hold within the, but if you put in your key things, see, how do you get, as a fresh graduate, how do you end up writing 10 pages? By putting all the various subjects that you have completed
with the grades.
with the grades next to it, and then you go and put in there the, what do you call, the various mini projects and assignments that you have done. All that is absolutely not necessary.
And every single part-time job you've ever had.
Possible. Exactly. All right. But sorry, just to add on, I think these part-time jobs which people think is not necessary to be included, I believe personally it helps.
Okay.
Because that will tell me, all right, that hey, even though this person was studying, he had that wanting to sacrifice the additional time that he had or she had to go and earn some income, which means the person is independent, not dependent very much on parents. So you see, we can read in between, the kind of things like that. So that is why putting in that little things, even if it was a 2 months part-time job, put it in there. Because it adds value.
Wouldn't there any standardized form of resume that company prefers? So let's say, well, companies can actually set the resume form already and ask them to fill in the form instead of having the 10 pages, 20 pages of resume.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies nowadays, okay, especially if you're going through large agencies like, Job Street and all, they actually have the standard resume templates already. Okay, but again, being a person who doesn't believe in conforming, I still believe that you should write it your way, because it is that your way which will impress the reader. Imagine reading the similar template resume, okay, or a CV for like what, few hours, when you have got a couple of 100 resumes and CVs. When you have a variation, you actually can pick up a lot of things about the individual. Right.
So we're actually almost at the end of our session, and I think before we wrap things up, I want to ask you, if you were to hire someone and you're sitting in the room waiting for the candidate to come in, and when they walk in, what are probably like the 5 important things that you look for?
I think dressing plays a very important role. Number 2, how you carry yourself. Number 3, mannerism.
Okay.
Number 4, speaking with humility and being humble. Number 5, be yourself. This would be my 5
facts.
5 ways to ace the interview.
I'm sorry, but doesn't mean that you really put a weight on the first impression. How important is the first impression? It just came in your mind. I've loved to ask you that.
First impressions plays a fairly important role, but it could possibly change along the way. Alright? But however, ask yourself, in today's job market, especially if you're hiring people to work with the public, with the society, you will need to make sure the person that represents your organization is someone who knows how to carry himself.
Presentable.
Because present himself well, because it's the first impression of your organization if you were to hire him. So as much as it may change, it is still very, very important. So make your first impressions right.
Okay, so I guess that's all the time that we have. It was a very interesting discussion. Thank you so much, Sunil, for sharing your insights.
Thank you very much, Gauri and Grace, for having me here.
You're welcome.